Hello, thanks for joining us on your channel of choice at this time, Africa Independent Television AIT. Welcome to the Friday edition of your program, Focus Nigeria. It's our program in which we put the searchlight on topical issues in the polity. My name is Benga Aruleba. It's a special edition today because we have a special guest. It's not every time that you have this type of guest, and so when you have them in your net, it's a big fish you have caught. You make a very heavy meal of it. Former governor of Kano State, former Minister of Education, the one popularly called Mallam, His Excellency, former Governor Ibrahim Shekarau, is our guest today. But then, Mallam Shekarau was in the ANPP for the 8 years that he was governor. He was believed to be kind of socialist. So how did he find himself in the midst of capitalists, quote and unquote, that the PDP represents? Anyway, that's part of what we'll be finding out, especially as 2019 knocks. We will be seeing an Ibrahim Shekarau that will be interested in the presidency. In other words, will he throw his hat in the ring again? And under what arrangement this time around? As I said, we'll be with Mallam Ibrahim Shekarau shortly, former governor of Kano State, former Minister of Education. But to let you know that these indeed are hard times for the embattled senator representing Kogi West Senatorial District, Senator Dino David Melai. Less than 24 hours after he was stretchered to an Abuja magistrate court on charges of obstructing justice and trying to commit suicide, the senator was arraigned on Thursday before another chief magistrate court in Lokoja, the Kogi state capital, on, pretty the same charges, except that this time around, some other very serious charges were added. Don't ask me how he was transported from Abuja to Lokoja, such that very early in the morning, he was in court. Well, unlike in the Abuja court, where the magistrate granted him bail in the sum of 90 million naira and 2 sureties, not so in Lokoja, where the senior magistrate, Suleiman Abdullah, declined to grant Senator Dino bail, but ordered that the senator be kept in custody of the police till June 11. Dino was arraigned along with one Kabiru Seidu, a.k.a. Osama, and Nuhu Muhammad, also known as Smoli. The prosecutor, Dr. Alex Iseyon, a senior advocate of Nigeria, said, granting bail is at the discretion of the magistrate, and so would allow the magistrate to exercise that discretion as he liked. And of course, the senior magistrate refused to exercise his discretion in Senator Dino's favor, but ordered his remand instead till June 11. Senator Dino is accused of criminal conspiracy and illegal possession of firearms. Just a little bit of how it went in that court case yesterday.
But the penalty for that is more than 3 years. So I don't want to go beyond that.
The court order is that he should be remanded, but under the custody of the Inspector General of Police, who should ensure good and adequate medical facilities for him. I do not know whether they are taking him to Abuja now or not. We'll see how it plays out. We are already taking steps to get him out on there. So you'll hear the result very soon.
Okay, let's move on now. The APC holds its primaries tomorrow to pick its governorship candidate for the Ekiti governorship election scheduled for July 14 this year. Governor of Nasarawa State, Umar Tanko Al-Makura, is the chairman of the 5-man election committee. The committee was inaugurated on Wednesday by the party's national organizing secretary, Senator Osita Izunaso. All right, these are just a few of the issues trending in the polity at the moment, the few that we have been able to track for you. Let's get to the studio proper here now. That's our discussion segment as we receive Mallam Ibrahim Shekarau, former governor of Kano State, former Minister of Education, former presidential aspirant. He's our guest this Friday.
It makes no difference to me really whether I win this election or not. I want you to believe me, and I'm not talking politics. For 25 years of my life, I fought for the freedom of Nigeria. Nigeria will attain independence on October 1, 1960. So it makes no difference to me whether the Sardauna or Balewa or Chief Awolowo or myself will become the first Prime Minister. So long as Nigeria is free, I'll be satisfied.
All right, welcome to the discussion segment. Like we said, it's going to be an interesting session we'll be having this Friday because we have a very important guest. It's not every time that you run into a big man and then he agrees to come on your program. My pleasure to welcome Dr. Ibrahim Shekarau. You used to be Mallam. When did you become doctor?
Well, as court pleases, you choose what to say. Mallam, doctor, Mr. Alhaji, whichever.
Former governor of Kano State, former minister of education, former presidential aspirant, he's been so many things. Foundation member of the ANPP, has a very interesting political history, really. Let's start to recreate some of that. You started off as the ANPP.
Yeah.
Then you were, of course, a political associate of the current president, General Muhammadu Buhari. And then you were PAMSEC in cabinet office,
yes.
Government house.
Yeah.
I'm sure it never crossed your mind that you want to go into politics. Circumstances probably forced you. What really happened? The story had it that there was a problem between you and the governor, Rabi Musa Kwakwaso. He demoted you and then seconded you to a school as a teacher. And then, of course, your political history started from there.
Well, thank you very much, Benga. I think it's not all that totally correct.
Okay.
But probably
let us have the exact history of what happened between you.
Well, briefly, I have been a civil servant in the teaching service of Kano State for almost a quarter of a century throughout my public service. I graduated from Ahmadu Bello University, 77, had my NYC in Imo State. Immediately I came back, I joined the state service as a mathematics teacher. I read mathematics education. And I rose through the ranks, becoming a school principal in very many institutions in the state, becoming a zonal education officer, director of education, then permanent secretary, Minister of Education, PAMSEC Water Resources, PAMSEC Civil Service Commission, and then permanent secretary Cabinet Office in charge of administration, finance, and general services. So by 1999, when the current dispensation came in, Konkoso became the governor of Kano, I was then the permanent secretary administration at the Cabinet Office. Well, I worked with him for about 6-7 months. Then I was transferred to the Civil Service Commission by early 2000. And then by 2001, I wouldn't want to call it a demotion, kind of, because it never reduced me in my rank, it never reduced me in my salary. But you see, by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the president and the governor has the right, the prerogative to appoint a permanent secretary from the common pool of the directors within the service. So I was appointed a permanent secretary in January 1994. I've served for about 7 years. And then when the new governor came, of course it was his choice to decide new permanent secretaries, you know, the usual thing, swapping, changes, transfer, and those who would be probably dropped. So I was reassigned at the pleasure of the governor, of course, to go back to my mother ministry, Ministry of Education, for reassignment. That was the words of the posting. But when I returned back to the ministry, I reported to the commissioner. I said, well, in this ministry, I have been virtually everything except the commissioner. So I don't think I need to bother myself to be in the management level. Let me go back and practice what I was trained to do, what I was employed to do initially. He said to the classroom, I said, it was a pleasure. So I was posted to the State College of Art, Science, and Remedial Studies as a chief lecturer, and which gave me my same rank. I was earning the same salary as a permanent secretary. So I saw it as a redeployment, But
Is it punitive?
well, I wouldn't be in a position to say so because the governor never told me why.
Was there any problem?
But there were insinuations, really. When I was in the cabinet office in charge of administration, the governor came, and I'm a product of the bureaucracy. When the governors came, the nostalgia, the impression is there, let us do things quick and regardless of the bureaucracy. So anytime, on few occasions, the governor directed the SSG that the cabinet office should do one thing or the other, which involves millions of naira. I will rarely take my initiative, draw up the appropriate memo, and ask the relevant ministry. If, for example, the governor says, okay, I want some boreholes in X village, it's not just the governor saying it. The governor can express his wishes. It's now the ministry or the Water Resources Agency who will ask them to initiate, to go and inspect. If the governor wants a borehole in village X, it is the agency that will now go and do the feasibility studies. Okay. Can you have a borehole there? Is it relevant? Then they raise the memo, the commissioner, and so on. This process, the governor, I learned, was not too happy. It was taking time. Who are these people? Governor wants a borehole in village X.
Somebody is saying...
All he was expecting was the next day, the drilling machine will be moved there and they start drilling. It doesn't work that way because you are involving public funds and there are procedures, there is financial instruction, there are the rules. So I understand, although he never told me himself, but I learned the governor was saying, who are these people delaying this thing? I want X done, B done. You see the military kind of thing. He has forgotten that we were in democracy. And in his own interest, it's better you have, because there should be accountability. Let the system, let the people employed to do the job. So I learned after about 6 months, on one or two occasions like that, the governor felt, why is it taking time? That he has given directives and you are taking 2, 3, 4 weeks before this matter begin to materialize. And they were told that, well, some bureaucrats in the process are delaying it. So I was redeployed to the Civil Service Commission. In the Civil Service Commission, my business is largely with the files, with discipline, employment, recruitment, promotion, and so on. And when I got there, for so many years, there have been some delayed promotion, disciplinary cases. I made sure I got the commission to be meeting every week as the permanent secretary. So promotions were coming. And again, unfortunately, the government interpreted it that my initiative was increasing the wage bill. You know, generally the government wants to have more money for contracts, for development in their terms and so on. So again,
you also became an enemy.
Exactly. I was termed, this PAMSEC is bringing out too many promotions, increase in salaries and advancements and so on. I was simply doing the job as per the rules. So suddenly when I was hearing the rumor, nobody ever confronted me to say what I was doing was wrong. I was simply doing my job as an ordinary civil servant, a humble civil servant. So I was redeployed to the ministry and I took up the lecturing mathematics in the State College of Arts and Science. That was what triggered the whole thing. You know, I've told you, all 2/3 of my side,
everywhere.
I produced so many students. So people and parents, I was a school principal for 13 years continuously. And I've headed the most premier institution in the State of College. So parents started asking. Students, my students all over the place who are now men of themselves, said, someone that has served us for over 20 years, he has been this, he has been that. Is this the way the whole thing is? What exactly is the problem? And nobody could explain. And I was comfortable doing my job with 6 hours a week lecturing. I had more time to myself. I have more time to do my other personal activities. So the agitation started, look, what does it take to be the governor? After all, if a governor, with all due respect, Kokoso left the service at the level 12, 13 officer. He was never even up to the management level. So people say, if people like this will become governor,
what about
you have served all these years. And don't forget also, during my service period in the classroom and school principal, I was, at the risk of sounding immodest, I was a trade unionist. I was very active in NUT, my dear professional organization, the Confederation of All Nigeria Confederation of Principals of Secondary Schools. I rose through the ranks from state secretary, got elected state president, got elected national vice president. I was the national president of all principals of secondary school in Nigeria between 1988 to 1992. So the trade union organizations were also concerned. This was our leader, what is happening? The agitation started. I kept telling them, look, I'm not prepared for partisan politics.
I don't have the money.
They said, come on, contest. I said, I haven't the money. You know, with the Nigerian contest. What broke the camel's back? After 1 year's struggle, pressurizing, I said, look, I don't even have a house of my own. How can I now think of going to governor? I was managing my monthly salary. Then the late Ambassador Colonel, Metamasule, the famous Ambassador Colonel, one day invited me. Some friends reported me to him. He said, come, Ibrahim. What's the problem? I said, is there any problem? He said, people have reported you that they're asking you to come into partisan politics, to serve them, and you're dragging your feet. I said, sir, with the kind of situation we have today, where do we have the money to go into even councillorship, not to talk of government? He said, shut up. If you have money, if you have people, you have wealth. People are wealth, go and answer them. I said, fine, as court pleases. I set up a committee of about a dozen of friends and associates. We started discussing. My next problem was, which party do I go to? There's PDP, there's MPP. The state government was PDP, federal was PDP. In the House of Assembly of 40, APP had only 5 seats. In the 44 local governments in the state, MPP had only 6. So everywhere was PDP. And of course, by association, I was closer to people like Abubakar Rimi. Of course, he's one of my heroes. We were doing our own backyard politics with them. I played a prominent role in the PRP days, the SDP, the DPN, and the rest. In fact, I was chair in the think tank academic committee of Rimi's team all along. So the expectation then was I should go to PDP. But after consultations and advice, you know, the agitation was I have to come and be the governor. So some elders said, look, if you go into PDP now, going into primaries with a sitting governor, there's hardly
no chance.
No chance. Go wherever you want, we'll be there with you. After all, it's about people. You say, fine. So I decided to pick a MPP ticket. It became a laughing stock, and even MPP was surprised. I was coming to be governor, and so the team was moving around. I took the ticket, I went to my ward, got the MPP ticket, and then wrote to the party that I wanted to be governor. My next trouble was that little did I know that the then state chairman also wanted to be governor of MPP. So we had a running battle. In the end, it's a long story, I got the ticket, and the sitting governor was also laughing. Who are you
I made him, how can you make it?
And people were saying, he was even saying, look at this frustrated teacher. We had nothing, we hadn't the money. My rickety Peugeot of 21 years, 504, was the one I was running with. We were going around from one corner to the other, campaigning, telling them I was standing. But don't forget, I've had so many admirers from the students, the teachers, and so on. I never ever printed one poster with my money. I had to leave in my house with my wife extra copies of the passport photograph. People knock at the door, say, let's have the photograph. They'll go and bring posters. The next day I'll find cartons of posters in the house. Any day we're going around, we collect 5,000, 2,000, 3,000 to fuel. We were so poor that before the election, we could not finish touring all the 44 local governments. From the day I took the party membership card.
Okay.
To the day I was sworn in as governor of Kano State, it was only 8 months.
8 months?
8 months.
And then you defeated an incumbent.
I beat him with over 600,000 votes in Kano. They couldn't believe it. My result was held for almost 2 to 3 days. They couldn't believe it. Abuja was mad. The then president was Obasanjo. Everybody was wondering, where is this coming from? In fact, it was a clear case of public mobilization, people's interest, and they knew us. And this is exactly one of the things we've been telling electors in Nigeria. Let people look at the antecedents. With all due respect, and at the risk of sounding immodest, we've served for 25 years. We dedicated ourselves to the service. I was in the classroom. I was with the students. I dedicated myself to this. We never thought. I never dreamt of coming into partisan politics. My vision was, after reaching the peak as a permanent secretary, is the peak of the aspiration of every civil servant. I was 7 years in the position of permanent secretaries, and I've been around, especially at the cabinet office, when is the umbrella thing.
Like a super palm sec.
And as God will have it, Benga, you see, God is wonderful. I will say I was privileged. I was being prepared, because for the 3 years I was at the cabinet office, I had known 90% of what goes in and out from the governor's office. All the briefs, all the memos, all the files, and so on. So it's like God in his own wisdom, I was being schooled, prepared. So by the time I became governor, nothing was new.
Nothing was new.
I've already known 90% of what goes on, especially in terms of the bureaucracy. And that gave me the opportunity. You know, as the cabinet office, I oversee all government ministers and agencies. All submissions come there, and I do the brief. Then the SSG is just most of the time just to proofread it and then fine and take to the governor. So by the time I became governor, I had a fair knowledge of virtually every ministry, every agency, every nook and corner, and the problems of all the areas. When I was in education, the feeling was that, look, we have too many can of worms in the system in education. We were arguing, even if you give us the whole of the budget. In fact, at a point we were accusing our leaders in the ministry that they were not telling government enough of our problems because no good funds were coming. When I became the power secretary at the cabinet office, I now see the can of worms in works, in health, in water resources, in agriculture, in sanitation, in whatever the villages, and so on. And I became a lot wiser that the challenge in governance is balancing between all these wide range of demands and the little resources. One has to prioritize.
Will all of that experience account for why you also made history as the first person to be re-elected governor in Kano State?
Well, I think I wouldn't say it is not really part of it.
Because we had been prepared for the job.
Oh, certainly, certainly. In fact, it didn't take me time. The very day I was sworn in, I appointed my people. I know what kind of people you require to be SSG, what kind of people you require as head of service. After all, they are all my colleagues to choose from. I know what quality of cabinet people you require as commissioner. It didn't take me time compared to my big brother who took 6 months to appoint his ministers. I mean, within the very first week, we just picked up. I had all my appointees in place, special advisors, because even if I did not have, by the time I became governor-elect, I waited for about 5-7 weeks. There's no excuse. Any governor, any president, or any local government chairman will get elected and take weeks.
To constitute.
What are you doing? You've already become. You knew you are coming. You pencil down the people you wanted to take. You consult widely. So immediately I got elected. When I was governor-elect, I was busy consulting, selecting, sifting, and so on. And we've already known the assembly people that was becoming. I was already talking to them. In fact, before we were sworn in, I was already holding meeting with the 40 elected state assembly. We're having some. So by the time we took off, we've known ourselves, we've known our priorities. It didn't take me more than 3-4 weeks to get the budget on to the House. Immediately I came in. A review of the budget, because we came in May. So the 2003 budget was already there. We did some review because I was part of the process of the whole thing. And for the 8 years I was there, we've never had one single disagreement with my 40 members of the State Assembly. We had about a dozen opposition from the PDP, but there was nothing we were not doing together. That's why I get surprised when there is disagreement between executive, the legislature, whether you have the majority or the minority. 99% of the problem, I put it on the doorsteps of the chief executive. Bring them along. We do the budget together. I've never sent to the State Assembly anybody to be appointed anything without talking outside the chambers.
Before you send it in?
What I always do, if I'm sending Benga's name to the State Assembly, I'll call the principal officers, plus the member from your constituency. We will sit and discuss, without your knowledge. That, look, I'm proposing Benga for commissionership. He's from your constituency. What's your judgment? What is he? If there are some few frictions, we tidy it up. If it is a no-go area, we don't have to embarrass you going to the assembly and be rejected. It's an embarrassment on you and to the government, even to the nominee. So we discuss it, we sort it out. So by the time it goes, it may interest you to know that whenever we finish the budget, we meet with the 40 of them. We eat, we laugh, we joke, and then we sit down. We bring the capital project in particular. If I say I want to construct Kano to Katsina, for example, somebody will say, no, it's better you do Kano to Sokoto. We argue, give and take. Maybe I'll say, okay, I drop my own. Let me do Kano to Sokoto. Next year I will pick Kano to Katsina. That's how give and take. We spend the whole 3 days discussing with them. In fact, we do deliberate omissions. I apologize if my members are listening, that I'm leaking the secret. So that when they get to the House, they will appear walking. Let's say we are doing some additions. Instead of 300, we say 270. He will put up his hand. Mr. Speaker, this addition is wrong. Let's do the calculation. People will see him walking. We've done it together. That's how it goes. See, but budgeting, look at the current situation we're in now.
So why do you think we have the current situation we have? If you have a party that has majority in the National Assembly and this kind of situation is happening.
In fact, with all due
respect, it can't get nominations
absolutely
passed without friction. It can't get budget passed without this budget was submitted since November. This is May. Nobody is even talking of when the budget
blaming ministries and so on. No, before the ministries even go for defense, you, the chief executive, have sorted the major aspects. What the assembly committees will be doing is sorting a few things, understanding the logistics, the reasons. How do you want to implement them? What are the implications? They will give you the details and so on. With all due respect, Benga, 99%. Or maybe 95%, so that I don't get to 100%. But 95% of the problem is that of the chief executive. What does it take? You call the assembly member. After all, how many of them are the National Assembly?
That leads me to the question of our leadership recruitment process. If we use your experience in government, for instance, and put it side by side with that of your predecessor in office, you see that they are different. Here you talked about what brought the initial friction between the two of you was the attitude of a typical politician who wouldn't want to follow or who didn't believe there are procedures for doing things and all of, and then somebody who had gone through another completely different process, different orientation, and knows that tomorrow when you are not there, records will speak for or against you.
Exactly. You see, my advice is
about our leadership recruitment system. How do we address that?
I think, number one, the parties themselves. You see, because if you don't get it right at the party level, there is no way you can get it right at the general election. That's the beginning of the problem.
The political parties.
The political parties. One, the leadership of the parties must be credible enough to appreciate the value of what governance is all about. It's not just about you bringing my associate, bringing my friend, and conniving and cheating and imposing candidates, whether they are right or not, because it's from my village, it's from this, from that. The political parties too. Party members should ensure that only people of credible background should be allowed to head political parties at all levels, be it ward, local governments, and so on. So I think, even though one may argue we're still growing, we're still learning, that is the beginning, if you get it wrong. But if you get credible people as leaders of the party, who will put their feet down, the right thing must be followed. The correct thing must be done. The rules of the party and the electoral process must be respected. And then when you come to the primaries, electing the candidates, the parties also have a role to enlighten the electorate, the delegates. Look, if A, B, C are the contestants, look at their antecedents. What were they before? What have they offered? You know, unfortunately, the general public depend on the few delegates. For example, if you have 60 million registered voters, the maximum you have at a national convention of all the parties, maybe 5,000? Maximum 5,000. Yeah. 5,000 people deciding who this 60 million will vote for. So if all the parties end up giving you evils to choose from,
that's what you are stuck with.
Yes. So some people may say, well, look at, there is no better one, I won't go and vote. You either don't go and vote, or you go for lesser evil, or you just vote and think that you have exercised your rights, let it be anybody. This has led to the general apathy we're experiencing.
So that's one of the problems of our leadership recruitment process.
Leadership recruitment.
I know that your political party, the PDP, for instance, in the report of the Equimadrid Committee,
I was a member.
You were a member.
I was a member.
To reform the PDP.
That's right.
Raised the issue of delegates system as a means of selecting candidates for political parties, and opted for
the open
primaries.
Yeah, you may
which one do you think?
I think
we address this problem of leadership.
Ideally, the open primaries will do. But you may ask, why is the PDP still not going for the open primaries?
Precisely.
Not that there is a reason.
3 years after making that recommendation.
No, I think there is a reason generally. I think that's why I said we're not still getting it very, very right at the party level. You see, part of the problem, when we had the meeting, we had a strategic committee, hundreds of members, all the leaders of the party were there. Everybody agreed that the open primaries would have been the best. But unfortunately, we also agreed the reality on ground that the membership registration process, the maintenance of the registers right at the ward level upwards, and the credibility of the membership is the problem. Because if you say it's going to be an open primaries, which means there's going to be the queuing on one-to-one at every ward level. And the only identification is you are a member of the party. If there is no authentic register, there would be explosion.
You could even have members of another political party.
No, if you and I are standing, you see, let me give you the clear picture of what is likely to happen. If you and I are standing in, let's say, PDP, and our opponents discover that I'm a weaker candidate, that people will not buy, they can
send their members to come and vote for
you. To populate my queue, and I become
make you winner.
And make me winner. Easy to beat.
No, that is okay. Easy to beat candidate.
So we all agreed this is only workable by the time you have a very authentic party membership register and the membership card two that cannot easily be produced by the roadside printer. And I can easily get the stamp of the chairman or the national secretary, forge his signature. All we are carrying now is a small paper card, cardboard kind of membership card. Yeah. You see, which you can easily get 1 million copies produced by the roadside printing press. Exactly. So until we get probably, I think somehow by the time Nigeria succeeds in the national identity card ownership, which will translate into solving the problem of INEC as well. Yeah. It will solve the problem of population head count. It will also help the political parties. Because,
know who their members
because
are.
If you register as party A, apart from the party membership card, your national identity card number could also be there. So on the day of open election, nobody can fault you that you're not a member of the party. So what we did in PDP to marry the two, one, to expand the number. Because if you have a larger number, the chances are that you will minimize the attempt to bribe them. Bribing 1,000 people is a lot easier than 5,000 people. So the number was increased. For example, at the State Congress, only the ward chairmen were members of the State Congress.
Okay, so you reduced the number of statutory...
No, increased.
You increased the statutory delegates.
So it is increased to 5 now. The chairman, the deputy chairman, the youth leader, women leader, and the secretary. 5 of them have increased it. And then at the state level, before the changes, only the chairman, deputy secretary, youth leader, women leader were members of the National Convention. But it is now, by this addition, all the state working committee, 14 of them. So from 5, you've added 7 more. So the number has increased a little bit. My vision is that we get to a point when we don't all have to congregate in one place.
Again, before you leave that point,
yes.
Can't you anticipate a problem in that area as well? In the situation whereby you have governors struggling to have the machinery of the party in their pocket, right from the state to the local government and ward levels. So if a governor, for instance, who is interested in second term, is able to hijack the party machinery, he's already sure of some substantial votes of statutory delegates.
No, I think, you see, part of the problem also will be solved when you solve the problem of having the right people. With all due respect to the governor's level, even the president level, is all the issue of attitude. I want to say, and this can be corroborated from my state, I never interfered in the affairs of my party in Kano.
That is one man out of 36.
I allowed them.
36.
I allowed free hand to elect the party. There is no one particular office of the party where I put my feet down and say it must be X or Y. Even in the nominations, include as far as low as to my council level. I've never dictated who the councillor from my ward would be, who the chairman would be. At a time in my local government, Nasarawa, when we were going to conduct election, about 27 aspirants came up. Some people came, the party leadership, Your Excellency, help us decide who should be. I said, no. That's the beauty of it. That's democracy. In fact, the more aspirants you have in the party, to me, the better, because that shows there is hope. Nobody will spend his time.
Wouldn't that be peculiar to know? Because your party had a convention not too long ago, and we saw the influence of the governors still very much.
This is why I said.
And in 2019, you can bet that we will still see more.
So you see, if I trust myself, it's just like the examination room.
Yes.
You know, a very confident student doesn't even want to talk to anybody on the day of the exam. And you don't want even your teacher to come around. You have prepared well. You are just waiting for the time. Some good students take one corner to hide themselves in the morning of the exam. Don't talk to me. I'm so well read. I'm prepared. If a chief executive has self-confidence, you have delivered, you have worked, You have campaigned, you have explained. You don't have to really give them a lot of money, squeeze everybody. Allow the credibility of the personality sell itself.
We're assuming that everybody is Ibrahim Shekarau.
When I was campaigning in 2003, Ben,
Yes.
you see, people used to ask me, what promise are you going to make? I never campaigned with, I'll give you roads, I'll give you water, I'll give you schools, I'll give you... No. I explained what I have done in the past. One thing I kept campaigning was, I will make sure I manage your resources judiciously. If you think you trust me on that, so be it. You see, every idiot can give contracts. Benga. Give him the money, even if you have not been to school. You hire contractors, you hire consultants and give the contract. There is nothing to be proud of about that. What is important, what are the due process? What have you implemented? What have you initiated in terms of programs, in terms of policies, in terms of changing the life of the human being, what Mallam Ibrahim Shekarau used to call democratic humanism. How does the democracy affect the life of the human being? But people go for white elephant projects, and to the point that the electors are being deceived. Many people believe if they don't see your grader on the road, you are not performing. That's why most of them, with all due respect, rush to flyovers in the cities. When the villagers they're drinking water together with their donkeys and their cows. No boreholes. You are doing billions of naira projects in the cities. Because if you drive to the cities, that's what you will see. And they will clap. Ah, he's walking. No. For example, if you take education, my dear field, if you recruit more teachers, nobody will know. Only the students and the caring parents. Yeah. If your child used to have only 2-3 lessons out of 8 in a day, and you employ more teachers, he's now having 8 lessons a day, only the child and the caring parents will know. People wouldn't know. But when they see you constructing new schools, they say, he's working. And that's where I concentrated.
Education.
We employed more teachers. And in case you may want to know, that's why I addressed the issue of pensioners. Within 2 years, I cleared 20 years backlog of pensioners. We introduced the best pension law in Kano. By the time I left 9 billion naira in the coffers of the State Pension Trust Fund, which was squandered within the first 1 year, and today they are not able to meet up the challenges of paying pension.
Is the entirely the person you took over from? Is also the person who took over
who
from
took over from me?
That's another peculiar story of Kano. Why is Kano this peculiar with his history? He's credited with having the most sophisticated voters. When other voters on election day choose to go to the farm or choose to be playing draft and ignore what is going on, not so Kano voters.
No, I think, you see, it is to do with maybe 2-3 factors.
Is it that you love power also?
No, I think that's, well, number one, Kano is a large cosmopolitan state. If you like, one large single city state, kind of. Because the metropolitan city is very large. And number two, being a commercial center for over a century, it attracts everybody there. And there are a lot of visitors coming. And the more visitors you have, the more enlightened the society is. And lastly, Benga, the mobilization for over 5 decades by people like Mallam Ibrahim Shekarau. Mallam Ibrahim Shekarau mobilized people. What I could remember from him is teach them to say no. Encouraging people to say no. Many people see him as anti-establishment, but that's what it should be. So Kano became very well politically enlightened and sophisticated, going by all this cosmopolitan thing, the city people, the enlightenment, and so on. So, and if you dare twist their arm, they will go the other side. Allow people to decide for themselves, allow people to identify what they want, even though we still have our own share of this impunity and so on. So when people accuse governors jacketing everybody there, I think it's not totally right, and of course not totally wrong, because some few of our colleagues lead to this accusation. If I trust my credibility, my antecedents, my performance, why would I have to impose? Why would I have to intimidate and dictate? I never dictated anybody that is contesting anything at all. But I know governors will say, look, A must be the contestant.
Chairman of social local government.
Exactly.
This person must be the councillor.
This one will go to the National Assembly, this one will go to the State Assembly, and so on and so forth.
Now, how are you able to survive in the political party whose major bane has been all of these things you just talked about? Because that has been the bane of the PDP.
No,
it's a party where only a few people decide what should happen.
You see, Benga, it's not a PDP thing, it's a Nigerian thing. Isn't APC going through its own experiences now? So we're all belonging to the same common pool. That's why, with all due respect to all the parties and the party I belong, I always say all the parties are necessary evils.
Five fingers of a leprous hand.
You see, Benga, I always convince myself and advise my fellow politicians, what is important if you belong to any political party are two things. One, if you're there, who are you interacting with? What kind of interactions are you going to have? Every party has the good and the bad. Every kind of character you're looking for, you can find in all the parties. Go to APC, you have very fine, good gentlemen and women there in APC. Go to PDP, you have the good and gentlemen and women in PDP. Go to APC, you'll find the rotten, corrupt, and sellable people there. The same thing in PDP. So it's all a matter of the party ensuring that the right people are given the opportunity. If you need the bad and the worst of the bad in every party, they are there. So it's not, all the problems we're talking about is not peculiar to PDP. In fact, I always say it's a blessing that another party had come, blessing in disguise, even though my party lost. I was not happy. But I think as things go on, Nigerians have now discovered it is not about the party. It's about the individuals. And one thing, Benga, that will make this very clear, issue of manifestos. If I give you an example of the party that I belong, when Obasanjo came, he was on to his economic strategic plan and so on and so forth. We took our time. He transferred this to the states. Immediately he left. When Yar'Adua came, same party.
He reversed all.
No, he came with fresh manifesto.
Yeah.
I mean,
fresh. That's
fresh
what target. Which almost reversed everything. Power had already been privatized. He reversed it. Some state-owned corporations, the NNPC, had almost been fully privatized. He reversed all of that. Same party.
He came with 7-point agenda. Whether they are right or wrong, that's not the point I'm looking at. At least there is no continuity.
Yeah.
And the worst of it, from the same team, when Yar'Adua passed away and Jonathan came, same team.
Same economic team.
Same team. Same team.
Mm.
Immediately, President Jonathan took over. We never heard of 7-point agenda anymore. He bring in transformation agenda. So you find that, and the same thing this APC is likely to, look at them battling now. They drew up their
restructuring.
They said they are going to give 5 billion news every year or every month, 5,000. Is there in writing? But is it being implemented? You see, one thing is that's why the question of the personality matters. I bet you, with all respect, due respect to all those elected people, how many elected people from councillor to the president can boast of having read the manifesto of their parties from cover to cover before they are elected?
Probably very few.
Some of them, you'll discover, have never set their eyes on the manifesto of their parties. They never, if you give them an examination on that without giving them notice, they will fail. So you find that their personalities become the manifestos. So if you get the wrong personality, he will bring the wrong manifesto, and people will pay dearly for it. And this is exactly what we're experiencing at the national level now. The way the president is fighting corruption is his own personal understanding of what corruption is all about.
Completely different from
what
his
it
party and party members.
Exactly. It's not a teamwork. There are procedures. You see, fighting corruption, even the United Nations is using the word control of corruption. So,
see, Mallam.
Yes.
We'll sign off this particular segment because I've not even exhausted half of what we need to talk about. So we just finished one session.
Okay.